Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to create the first class example that's in the book. It's a very simple class. It has one method, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Let me show you how to set it up first. Right, so we're going to need two code files. The first code file will actually be the class definition, and the second one will be the class used to test the class definition. It'll make a little bit more sense once we set it up. All right, so let's set up the first file. All right, so file, add, new item, and then code file. And then here we're going to call this one, we're going to call it gradebook, and add. Okay, so that is going to be the first file that we'll need. We can create the second file, which is going to be used to test the gradebook class. So file, add again, new item, code file, and then this file we're going to call it gradebook test. So gradebook test, add. Right. But first we need to, before we can test the gradebook, we need to define the gradebook. So make sure you're in this file here, not this one. So close that out. Okay. So for this one, we'll need the system namespace. So type the directive using, and then system semicolon. Okay, so now we'll define, we'll write the class declaration. In this case, we're creating a gradebook, which is going to be, just a simple gradebook, something an instructor would use to store grades. Maybe it has the name of the course, but we're going to keep it very simple for now because this is just the first example. All right, so then first we'll type public class grade book, right? And then this naming convention, the class is usually uppercase, and then every other word is capitalized, and then everything else is lowercase. And then that also matches the file name, right? So what do we mean by when we write the word public? Public is what's called, or this part here in the class declaration is called the access modifier, right? So this determines what type of access this class grants, right? So if I want to create an object of the gradebook class in another class, which will be the one we define here in gradebook, then this class needs to be public, right? The opposite is private. So if I made this class private instead, then this class would not be able to be created by gradebook test, right? We couldn't use it there. So that's why it needs to be public. It's publicly accessible to other classes in the same project, right? Okay. So this class is going to be very simple. As we move on to other examples, then we'll start including instance variables, data, different things like that. For now, all we're going to do is define a method inside of gradebook, but it's not going to be the main method because all the other examples we've done, we've only used one class, and that one class, well, we put the main method in there. Now we're going to define classes with methods other than main, and then that'll make a little bit more sense once we get to the second code file. Right, so if I want to declare a method that is accessible to other classes, then I need to put public, and then the return type for the method. This method is going to be just display a simple message. It's not going to return anything. It's not going to do any sort of calculations. It's not going to return anything really. So then we can just use void, and I'm going to call it display message. And then every method you define has a parameter list. But that parameter list can be empty, right? So it doesn't require any additional information to do anything. Display a message of some sort, right? We could actually send some text here instead, pass on some sort of argument, something like this, string right, and then we can display the course name based on the information passed passed to us by the user or by someone else from another class. But here we're just going to keep things very simple for now. Right, so no parameters, and then it just be a simple statement: console dot write line right. So that's all our method does. Whenever we call it, it'll display a message, and that message will be called welcome to CITP 3310. So that's a very simple method, has and very simple class, just one method. Okay, so how do we actually use this? Okay, so then that we're going to test it out. We can save it, file, save all. We can save it and then use it somewhere else. So now we're going to go to gradebook test, and then here we may not use the system namespace, but just as a habit, let's just go ahead and put it in anyway. For the example, we probably won't need it. Okay, but let's just put it in case we decide to modify it or to do something else. Okay, so just like the way we had done the other one, this method, or this class, we start with our class declaration. So that's public class, and this class is called whatever the code file is called, so it's gradebook test. So gradebook test. Okay, and then here, since this is going to be the class that's used to test our class, here we'll need to define the code file, or we need to define the main method, right? So the main method is always public, otherwise we would never be able to use it, and yeah, program would never run. And that's also the thing here with this other keyword called static. Whenever we define a method that's static, that means that we don't need to create an object of gradebook test in order to run the main method, right? Because the main method is the first thing that runs, so there would be no way of actually instantiating a gradebook test class. But that'll make a little bit more sense later on. But that's the reason why we define it as static, right? Okay, so public static void, so it doesn't return any sort of integer, it doesn't return a string, it's just going to run some statements, right? So the return type is void, uppercase main, and by convention it takes one argument, string, it's an array, args, So now we've set up our gradebook class, gradebook test class. Now in this statement here, we're going to use the constructor, the default constructor that comes with gradebook, um, to actually create a gradebook object, right? So here we're going to, if I want to define a gradebook, it's kind of the way we define a variable. When we define a variable, we type a data type int x equals 75 and then semicolon, right? So that means we use the data type. We want some sort of integer, the name of that data of that variable, so that's x, right? So x is of integer type, and then we assign some sort of value. So that's kind of the same thing we're going to do to create a gradebook object, right? So instead of int, the data type is the class, so that's grade book. And then the next thing we need, similar to this, we need the name of the gradebook. So we could call it my gradebook 1. Okay, and then we'll need, we're going to use a new keyword. All right, so new, and then we're going to call the default constructor of gradebook. We can also define our own constructors, but that's going to be later on in the chapter. Right now we're just trying to keep things kind of simple. All right, so then gradebook, and since we didn't define a constructor, the constructor takes no arguments, right? Later on we could define our own constructor and then pass values to it. Right now we're just going to create it very simply with no arguments at all. So the name of the class, I'm sorry, the class name, then the object name, then the new keyword, then call the constructor. All right, so you'll need to learn that, but as we start doing more examples, that will make more sense to you. Okay. Okay, so now we have an object called my gradebook 1. So my gradebook, because it's of a gradebook class or of type gradebook, then I can use whatever methods are available in this class that are public, right? So my gradebook 1, and then we can do uh, the dot, which is going to be called the I believe it's the member access operator, right? So it accesses all the members that are available. So it could be either methods, it could be instance variables, right? So we had defined one, and you see here in IntelliSense we had defined a public method called display message, right? So IntelliSense already picks up on it because it's in the same project, right? It's in the same file. So we just double click here, and display message takes no arguments at all. So we leave it like that. All right. And then display message, when display message is called, it will transfer its the control, or it will jump to here. It'll find display message, and then it'll execute the statements that are there. Okay, so let's try it out. Control F5. All right, so welcome to CITP 3310. Okay, we can also do the breakpoint here. This we don't need. This is just an example, just to show you how to create an object once we have a class defined. Okay, make sure you save all, and then I'm going to put a breakpoint here. Okay, so I put the breakpoint. Um, so let's go ahead and start with debug. Okay, and I'm going to pin this to the screen, and we can see it in action. Okay, so here's the program starts, creates an object of new gradebook, and then here it gets to the method, and then we're going to step into it. So as soon as we get to this display message here, then it should take us to the class, right? So step into, right? So then it jumps automatically to public void display message, and then now it's set the first curly brace. So then step into. So now it's at console.writeLine. Step into again, and then you see once we stepped into it, the message actually pops up. Now it's at the last curly brace, so then it's gonna move back to the caller, which was coming from textbook test or gradebook test. So then step into. So then it's here, and then finally it gets to the last curly brace in the main. Step into again, and then that's it. So then you can kind of see how it jumped from here to there, and then it came back, and then it ends. Right. So as we do more examples, we'll start adding data. We'll define our own constructors. Um, we'll actually learn a little bit more about methods, actually being able to pass arguments to them, so that way we can define what the course name should be. Right. We're just not going to use a default one. This just to keep things kind of simple. So I hope this helped a little bit. Um, so then I will create more videos very soon. Thank you.